Hello everyone, welcome back. Today you're going to get a 2-for-1 on the reviews because we have a novella which we will then directly follow up with the full-length novel. So we're going to be starting off with Finding Out. So this is the story of Ivy Morrison and Fox Killer Kilpatrick. Trigger warnings for the story include gratuitous profanity, sexually explicit scenes, references to rape and violence. There is a scene where a character is held at knife point. So that being said, let's move on with the story. Ivy Morrison has joined an online dating site so that she can get a date for her cousin's wedding. She doesn't really get along with her cousin, and quite a few people from her family, they tend to look down on her because she is, heaven forbid, she is a 27-year-old woman who is not married. So she really wants to not feel inadequate to the rest of her family, so she wants to come with a hot date. So she's joined a dating site. Fox Kilpatrick, also known as Killer, lost a bet and he had to join a dating site and go on at least one date. And that is how the two meet. They hit it off and they actually end up beginning to develop a relationship. And for the most part, their relationship develops pretty well without too much friction, so to speak. You don't have either of them fighting their feelings. You don't have either of them refusing to admit that they're in a relationship. As their feelings progress, they accept it pretty well. You do have the drama of Ivy's family, and some drama that occurs at the wedding itself. And then there's also this added bit about there was someone on the dating site who was using that dating site to identify future victims. And I'm not going to specify if it was male or female victims, but just know that that is there. That is an element to the story. As for the characters, Ivy, I thought was extremely relatable. She was fun. She was quirky. She's a very sweet, kind woman to two of her employees at the diner or coffee shop that she owns. Were dropouts from school, and a lot of people didn't want to give them a try, and she was willing to hire them. And so they're very devoted to her. But she does have this tendency where if she's around people that she considers to be extremely attractive, or she is self-conscious, or having any sort of anxiety, she really has this bad habit of speaking a lot in those situations. She speaks extremely fast to the point where people start to call her motor mouth. She'll say the most inappropriate things at times without meaning to. She's just constantly putting her foot in her mouth whenever she is kind of worked up, so to speak. But she's a good-hearted person. And so most everybody does end up liking her for the most part. As for Fox, he's a very quiet, stoic person, and he can be a little gruff around the edges, but once he realizes that he has feelings developing for Ivy, as is typical with men from the Hawks MC, he becomes very protective and very territorial, so to speak. And when he realizes that there is somebody from the site who is possibly targeting one of them, he really wants to make sure she's protected. Totally makes sense. You do find out that he's been harboring a massive amount of guilt over something that happened to a partner of his when they were at a previous partner of his when they've been at a party. So that is something he has to come to terms with and really move forward with in order for anything to work with him and Ivy. Again, it's a novella. It's not a full-length novel, but the character development is there. It's just not as expanded as you would be able to do in a larger book. But your ability to connect with the characters is there. Your vested interest in their relationship is there. You're not really lacking much of anything just because it's a novella. It's just a little bit of a quicker read. So that being said, for this super fun, cute little novella, I would give this a 3.7 out of 5 stars. So we're going to move on to the next story, Blackout. And again, I will make sure I have the cover art for this one on the thumbnail because I know my camera likes to switch everything around. So this is the story of Clorinda James and Blue Skies, also known as Blue. So Clorinda is one of the more vulnerable female leads we've had in any of the stories before because she had been in an accident that turned into a fire when she was 19 years old. And this led to her parents passing, and it also led to her going blind. So at 19, she had to move in with her sister, who then had to start taking care of her and working to pay off her medical bills. And so here she is now in her mid-20s, and she doesn't really have much of a life. Her life revolves around her sister's life, and her sister isn't able to do much with her because she's working so much. So she gets to go to a local coffee shop to have coffee, and she'll just kind of listen to people talking and the conversations they have, and it's a way for her to get out of the house. And this is where she meets Blue, who we've met in previous stories. He is the one who kind of went up against Talon for Zara's affections. And Blue has been under the impression that she's been staring at him, and he definitely finds her attractive. And so he comes and introduces himself, and is slightly mortified when he realizes she hasn't actually been staring at me. It's just where her gaze fixes when he realizes that she's blind. That being said, though, Clorinda actually does actively wait for him when she is there, because she has a heightened sense of smell from her lack of sight. So she appreciates his smell. She finds it very comforting. She loves the sound of his voice, and he's kind of a highlight to her week is when he comes into the coffee shop and she can listen to him talking to the barista. And they start chatting and they kind of hit it off, and Blue wants to take her out, but her sister doesn't like that idea too much, and being that she does live with her sister takes care of her. Her sister kind of decides what happens in her life and what doesn't happen in her life. And if she doesn't want it to happen, it's not going to happen. The other place that Clorinda is allowed to go is the local library. Her sister will take her in, sit her down at a table with a bunch of audiobooks while she goes to work. And this is where she meets Deanna and Julian. When I did the review for Climbing Out, I did mention that there is a character that Deanna seems to feel for, and it spoke to Deanna's character. Well, that character is Clorinda. And Deanna and Julian have kind of befriended Clorinda at this point, and they're trying to figure out a way to help her and kind of get her away from her sister, because while Clorinda is willing to explain away her sister's behavior as just frustration over the fact that she has to care for her now and pay her medical bills, Julian and Deanna really recognize the fact that her sister's abusive to her. Like, she'll smack her upside the head and call her stupid and all sorts of horrible things. And so Julian manages to sneak Clorinda a cell phone, basically telling her, if there's anything that happens, give me a call and we'll get you out. Well, the call has to be made. And I can't get into why, because it'll give too much of the story away, and I don't want to do that. As I already stated at the last review, I'm trying to keep the spoilers to a minimum. But as can be expected, Hawks gets involved, which brings Clorinda and Blue back together, and they each thought that the other had blown each other off. And when they realize that that's not the case, they kind of start to move forward, creating a relationship. Blue is very mindful of the fact that Clorinda is blind, and he wants to be sure that she is actually ready to be in a relationship with him, and that is not just fancy on her part, and that she actually wants to be with him, not that she just wants to get away from her sister, so to speak. Now, I'm not gonna lie, in previous stories I always kind of felt like, Blue was trying to take Zara from Talon. I mean, come on. He's not Talon. But you find out some things about Blue. You find out some things with his family and how he's cared for his mother and his younger brother. And you really start to like him more. And you start going, okay. Okay, Blue's a good guy. Blue is a good guy. Blue's very likable. He's very laid back. He's very chill. But he is very protective. He is very possessive and very jealous of Clorinda. That tends to happen with a lot of the men in the MC. And Blue and Clorinda together are just very cute. Clorinda wants to be self-sufficient. She wants to be independent. She wants to be Blue's partner. She doesn't want to be a burden to him. And Blue wants her to be independent and self-sufficient. He doesn't mind taking care of her, but he knows that she wants to be independent and self-sufficient, so that's why he wants those things for her. He wants them for her because she wants them for her. And he wants her to be happy because he cares about her. There's not too much else I can really give to you on this one without spoiling too much, but I very much enjoyed the story. I very much enjoyed the concept. I liked the fact that Clorinda, even though she's in a position where she's more vulnerable than some of the other women have been, still has a backbone and she wants to be self-sufficient. I like the fact that Blue really is just totally devoted to her and will basically bend over backwards for her if he had to. They're a very likable couple, very sweet couple. And by the end, you really feel for both of them for various reasons. So on the whole, I'd say I'd give this one a 4.6 out of 5 stars. It's a very good read and I thoroughly recommend it. And just like with most of these stories, they're very well done. So the next review is going to be the 4th in the original Hawks MC series. And then we'll be moving on with the Carolina Springs series, or Carolina Springs Charter series. There we go. I look forward to seeing you all at the next review. You have a great day. You take care. Bye-bye.